Welcome back to Dads Meet World, your special dedicated podcast where two dads get together and chat about the seminal 90s TV show where a young boy got to meet the world and explore it and what it did to sometimes destroy his world, his life, and sometimes confuse him. I am one of your two dads. I am Brett, and joining me, as always, is your other dad.
I'm Tyler. I am the other dad.
And we're here this week. We're going to get into the episode, but first, Tyler, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing all right, although I'm a little miffed about something.
What are you miffed about this week, Tyler?
Well, you see, we talked about starting a podcast for a while now, and about how we want to do something, and how much we love Boy Meets World, and we were like, hey, let's just do this thing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, apparently, a couple of people who were on the show Boy Meets World decided that they wanted to start their own podcast.
Yeah, they stole our idea.
They did steal our idea. Now, clearly we weren't on the show, so we're not going to have immediate insight, what was I feeling when I delivered this line type of stuff, or how did I get on the show? But, we're going to talk about the real important stuff, right? Like how we feel as we watch it.
No, and they've openly admitted they haven't watched the show since it aired. It's been 30 years. We've seen this show many times since it aired at different life stages. We are fans. They probably don't remember what was happening. I mean, come on.
Right. Now, with that said, have I listened to every episode so far? You bet your bottom dollar I have.
Oh, you're better off than I am. I've only listened to the preview and about 10 minutes of the first episode so far.
Right. But I mean, I guess the reason I bring this up right now is because A, it's okay if you listen to another Boy Meets World podcast or other podcasts in general. I listen to plenty of them out there. We will never be offended if you listen to them, because there's a chance that we've listened to something out there as well. I view this as a community thing. There's a lot of us Boy Meets World fans out there, and I think we should all be supportive of one another, because that's the thing that Mr. Feeney would want from all of us, right?
That's right. That's part of doing good.
Mm-hmm. And, if Boy Meets World is happening today, he would have a class where somehow he was leading a discussion about how to have your own podcast and, be forced to teach it for whatever reason, for one episode.
Yeah. Or he'd have Mr. Turner do it, or Eli.
Yeah. It's true. But, point of order is that, hey, these are wonderful people. The characters that they portrayed mean a lot to us, and we're going to talk about them.
That's right. And who knows? Maybe they'll hear through the grapevine. If you listen to their podcasts and you listen to us, they'll have us on, They'll have our podcast guest on their podcast.
Yes. Or we'd love to have them here, Go ahead. You can call us in. We'd love to talk to you. It'd be a dream come true.
That's right.
Yeah. With that said, we're coming after you.
That's right. Sure.
Because they're never going to know who we are, and that's okay.
That's right. Didn't your wife tell you that they don't even know who we are?
They did. Challenge accepted, though.
That's right. Challenge accepted. All righty.
Should we... Oh, I'm sorry. How are you doing, Brett?
I'm fired up now. I'm fine before.
Getting the juices bubbling.
That's right. The juices are bubbling, I guess. Usually they flow, but I guess they're bubbling now. Yeah, got some projects planned around the house, Gonna rearrange some of the rooms this weekend, Got some moving done this afternoon. Yeah, I've been busy, but yeah, good.
Awesome.
Well, let's dive in. We're gonna explore one of the more well-known episodes of the entire course of the series. When people talk about Boy Meets World, or when they even think about Boy Meets World, This is one of the handful of episodes that they'll have a memory of, or they'll be able to point back to. This is the 4th episode of season 1, Cory's Alternative Friends. Shawn and Cory get split up from doing a project together, making Shawn work with Minkus and Cory working with Topanga. Cory overhears girls making fun of his hair and decides to change it. This is written by Patricia Forrester, directed by David Trainer, and it originally aired October 15th, 1993. Now, this episode currently has an IMDb rating of 8.6. And I'm double checking my notes, but yes, this is actually, up to this point of the 4 episodes that we have gone through, this is the highest rating on IMDb thus far. So, gentle viewers, we really haven't named our viewers yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
So there's your challenge this week, viewers. We need a name for our listeners.
Yeah, we need a name for you people.
We're not a video podcast. I don't know why I called them viewers.
For the listeners?
Gentle listeners, you are in for a treat because this is currently the highest rated episode that we've looked at.
Yeah. Oh, and also, if you watched Girl Meets World, you know that this is an episode that they've come back to multiple times, with clips and whatnot of Cory and Topanga, their love blossoming here in this episode.
That's right, because this is the introduction of Topanga.
Topanga.
That's right.
Oh, we need to get a sound of later on in the show where the guys are always like, oh, Topanga.
Yeah, I got to remember which episode it's in so I can clip it before next week.
Was that Sweet Valentine? It's the one after Cory and Topanga are on the fritz.
Yeah, we'll talk off mic. We'll figure it out. So anyway, the episode starts with, we're going to dive right into 2 girls that we have never seen before, and I'm going to dive right in with their acting credits. Paige and Barbara. Now, Paige is played by Marla Sokoloff. This is her first credited role. She went on to play Gia in Full and Fuller House. And
the biggest villain of Full House.
Best known, though, probably for The Practice, which she was on for, I believe, the entire run. And still working in Hollywood. So there you go. She got her start on Boy Meets World. Good job, Marla. You got your start here. And Barbara, played by Megan Parlin, best known probably for the show Hang Time, which ran from 95 to 2000. I vaguely remember watching a few episodes. I think it was on ABC. Might have been on TGIF for half a season. Not sure. She retired from acting and is now a science documentary writer and producer.
So anyway, it's not the girl who later returns to play one of Cory's girlfriends.
No, that is someone else in the episode. We'll get to her.
Well, all right.
So anyway, they're presenting a science project to the class. Rather interesting one. What did you think of this science project there, Tyler?
It felt very 90s. Felt very much, hey, we have this little, thing that's going to do everything for us, and we know it's going to make that teacher happy.
Yep, a lot of dry ice.
Yes.
Yeah, so they present their project. They get a lot of love from Feeney. Congratulations all around. And then it's time for Cory and Shawn. How air pollution affects our everyday life.
Great topic.
Mr. Feeney is pleasantly surprised. He thinks he's in for a treat.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's wrong.
Geography is not their strong point, and it is utterly hilarious. They pull out their telescoping pointers, and he has to correct everywhere that they're pointing at.
I love this bit so much because he's just so effortlessly just barely moving them and just getting in the right spot. And then immediately they point again. It's even worse than before.
And they're just pointing to Denver and Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And they can't hit it either time. It's great.
Yes. I mean, technically, if they just moved a little bit out, then their dramaticness would be easier to do.
Oh, yes. But they're so serious about it. It's hilarious. And the Feeney just has his here we go moment. And it's, I love it when they shift towards baseball.
I have a little deep dive about this.
Oh, have at it.
Yes. So in the episode itself, their presentation goes into how a bogus team, the Rockies, which is an expansion team.
I remember when Colorado was awarded the Rockies as an expansion team.
So they're like, hey, they're hitting a lot more home runs than Philadelphia. If we had less pollution in the air, we also would have more home runs. Well. First of all, just so you know, the Rockies were an expansion team in '93, so I could understand why Sean Hunter would be upset about the Rockies since they're a new team and anything new is clearly bad. It's like when people got upset whenever the Las Vegas Knights started doing well, like immediately. They're like, this shouldn't happen. Expansion teams shouldn't be good right away.
Yeah, they're supposed to suck right away and earn their stripes, so to speak.
They got a good goalie. That's half the battle. It's like picking up a good quarterback in football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Colts might have a shot this year.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Don't you worry.
Tyler's a Colts fan, by the way, listeners.
Yes, go Colts. So anywho, the Rockies and the Florida Marlins were both the expansion team that year. Yes. American League and the NL.
And the Marlins are the Miami Marlins now, for anyone who might be confused.
Yes, they're now the Miami Marlins. Well, anywho, in the 1993 season, the average home run hit per team was 144. The Rockies' total home runs that year was 142. So they were 2 home runs below the average. Now, based on Cory and Shawn's research, you would think clearly Phillies are having a lot worse home runs this season. Mm-hmm. You'd be wrong. Phillies had 156 home runs, which I believe was they had the most home runs that season. So I think just, again, in this universe that is the Phillies and Boy Meets World, the Phillies aren't doing that well. You know, they're a subpar team, or like they're just barely making it. Actually, the Phillies were quite dominant in '93, and were a really good team, had solid pitching and clearly solid hitting. So,
I mean, just a week ago they had a no-hitter, and now they are getting beat out on homers by a bogus expansion team.
Yes. So, no, the actual 93 Phillies played quite well. They didn't win the World Series, but hey, they still had a good season. Better than what they're doing right now.
Yep. You just like to dump on the Phillies, don't you?
I mean, that's all this kid talks about is the Phillies.
And this is about the only season he'll do that, but we'll see.
It's really true. This is the season that he's obsessed with the Phillies, and that kind of goes away. It's like he meets girls or something.
I know. Oh, yes. Well, thanks for that deep dive. And I have to say, I love that Cory and Shawn, as inaccurate as their project might be, they tie their science project into something that they are passionate about in their real life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and as inaccurate as might be, they might have some sound scientific principles, because the air quality between Denver and Philly is a very stark difference, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. I know it's thinner in Denver. I mean, every every nationally televised football game for the NFL I see in Denver, there's always talk about how at Mile High, well, it's not Mile High Stadium anymore. It was in Vesco. I don't remember what it is anymore.
Right. Mile High Stadium anyway.
Anyway, there's always talk about how, you can kick field goals further because the air is thinner. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that a baseball will fly further there as well, especially compared to Philadelphia. But just seeing them so passionate about that and tying it into their school project, I was actually rather impressed with it. Mm-hmm. But Feeney is not, and so he wants to have them redo the assignment.
Yes. With different partners.
Yes. And so we're going to have Shawn with Minkus, who had that really nice, well-timed head slap. And Cory tries to pick his own partner. And that's going to be worse than him and Shawn somehow. I'd love to see that project.
Yes.
But he's going to be with Topanga, who we finally get to see. Topanga. But she's so weird in this first appearance. She wants to see if his aura will align with hers. And, I mean, she's very much the moon child at this point in her origin. And, yeah.
Yeah. I will say I did spend a little bit of time trying to find out about vibrations and all that jazz, but I couldn't get a clear answer, so I just abandoned that research.
Apologies to anyone who does practice any New Age beliefs, but it's kind of hard to get a lock on them because there are so many different avenues. So it's kind of hard to get a solid one voice perspective.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we've got this going on. And then Cory wants a sidebar with Mr. Feeney. And, he complains that...
Objection, Mr. Matthews?
Yes, objection. She's so weird. And...
well, just real quick, I love how he says, "Can you be swayed?" And he says, "I'm Gibraltar."
I'm Gibraltar, now, Mr. Matthews.
Yes. Now, me being a kid who clearly didn't learn anything when he was in school, I was like, "What's Gibraltar? Is that like a thing of like court or whatever? Like what is this?" So this goes into my next deep dive.
Yeah.
And so essentially, what I learned about Gibraltar is that it's a British overseas territory occupying a narrow peninsula of Spain's southern Mediterranean coast, just northeast of the Strait of Gibraltar. Yeah, Strait of Gibraltar, on the east side of the Bay of Gibraltar, and directly south of the Spanish city of La Lille. La Lille? Yeah. So essentially, it's a small little area that literally... like it's part of like the under area of Spain and thus Europe, and it's an area that constantly goes into war because there's ships that go into that area and people have battles, and it's a very hard area to hold and to keep strong. So I think when Feeney's saying I'm Gibraltar, like, no, you can't sway me. I am staying firm and good luck.
The Rock of Gibraltar is what he's referring to there, and that is there. And it's become a symbol of British naval strength.
Yes.
So, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So
we said the same thing.
We did, yeah. Yeah. We're just having fun there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll cut that out because I sound very condescending there. I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. We're saying the same thing. We
are. He has that very posh accent. Like, it's not British, but it's very posh.
England doesn't have a navy, you liar.
But anyway, so Cory's got this sidebar, and he complains because Topanga's so strange.
She's strange is in the eye of the beholder, Mr. Matthews.
And he, for instance, he shares with Cory that he hears Cory singing along with Morgan's Barney records.
Ah, yes, Barney.
And I have to wonder, what kind of Barney records is Cory singing along with?
You do what you have to do to make your sister happy.
Did you do any deep dives into Barney, per se, by chance?
Did not. I thought about it. I think Barney gets mentioned again in another episode, so if he comes up again, I'll talk about it.
Oh, yes, he will. He will in a couple of episodes when Cory and Shawn are pulling off a big scam.
Yes. So, no, I mean, Barney was right up my wheelhouse as a child. I firmly remember watching Barney as a little kid, and then my sister watched it, so I know plenty about Barney. The horrors.
All right, so then we go into the theme song, and the look on Cory's face is just, oh no. So we go to the theme song, and we come back, and this is when Cory overhears Paige and Barbara talking about Brillo head. For anyone's unfamiliar with Brillo is a kitchen sponge type of thing. It's very, it's like steel wool.
Would you like to know the Urban Dictionary of that?
I'm kind of afraid, but excited.
Basically, a Brillo head is a person who has a ugly curly hair, often a person with mixed ethnicities. A halfie will have the white complexity of black hair, and they can accurately be described as a Brillo head.
All right.
So
Not
there you
sure
go.
why I was scared of that then. It's just
Not that bad.
Just Urban Dictionary itself has that bad reputation. Where does Cory's curly hair come from? Neither Alan nor Amy really has curly hair. Eric does not have curly hair. Morgan does not have curly hair. Where does Cory's hair come from?
Do I need to do a deep dive in where he gets the hair? Because I know this is going to come back up.
Yeah, it's going to come back up. I know that there are genetic reasons for eye color and for hair color and for freckles, but where does his curly hair come from? We need to know this. We need this answer.
I got you.
All right, so yeah. So, Topanga, Cory and Topanga they're hanging out in the kitchen. They're working on their project. And we find out that Topanga refers to her father as Jedediah by his first name, not as Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always found this interesting. And there have been times where I've experimented with referring to my parents by their first name. Did you ever do that growing up?
My parents weren't the type of hitting parents, but I knew I should never call them that until I got old enough.
It's interesting that you start your sentence with that preface.
Well, I knew my parents were going to hit me if I called them by their name. But as I got older to a teenager, if I were to have a nickname with them, if their actual name, it wasn't welcomed.
Yeah, it didn't last too long with me. And, Cory tries it. It's Amy, or if you prefer, Mom. And go ahead.
I do have a tiny deep dive for you.
Go for it.
So essentially, the dad, father, all that stuff can be traced back to the 1500s. And then mom can be traced back to the 1800s. I know in certain old textbooks, for lack of better words, like the Bible, we have, references to mom, dad, all that jazz, but, that could be easily a later thing that was put in there to make it easier to understand, what that is and how we refer to people. But anywho, so that's the general one I found. And also, there's not an actual culture where, like, it's okay to call your parents by their first names. It's mostly just based on a family thing.
Yeah. And I actually got to have this discussion with my oldest son just a few days ago. And it's kind of a somewhat common occurrence where one of them will refer to us by our first name. But for some reason, he started calling us by one or both of us, I forget, by our first name. And it kind of opened up that door for... really? You're gonna start this? He's 13, so he's getting to that age where if he was a little billy goat, he'd be butting heads just to kind of prove himself. But yeah, we really got to get into a conversation about why he started with a question. Why do we have to call our pastor, or why do we call a pastor this, but our youth leaders we call by first name? And that led into this whole conversation of titles and the honorific and respect and the idea of casting that sort of distance and of respect and of creating that eldership distance. And that fed into conversation about with parents and children and how there needs to be that level of respect given where you submit under your parents' authority. And so this whole conversational window here with Cory and Topanga and Amy and Jedediah here, where, I understand Jedediah and we'll get to Chloe in this episode, I believe. And Topanga, where, her parents are attempting to do the whole... this would have been the hippie thing in the 90s where they're trying to be their kid's friend more so than the parent. And you kind of saw this make its return in Gilmore Girls in the early aughts. There's not, in my opinion, there's not enough distance there for that authority to take effect when things would go south or when you need to instill some sort of discipline or when you need to make the tough calls and be the one that takes the responsibility in that relationship. Meanwhile, you've got Cory trying to use Amy, and all it takes is a look from her to say, or mom, if you prefer.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was just a fun little tangent, but I found it very, very fun that, I see that happening in the Matthews kitchen, and I just had that conversation with my own son a few days ago, a few days prior.
Well, and I think I've said this to you before, but if not, I'll say it again, also just for the listener's sake. But I'm a firm believer in you earn your title. You don't just get the title. You earn it by doing it, by being it. My best example of that is I have a step grandma, who to me has always just been grandma. I don't refer to her as, yes, this is my step grandma. It's just, this is my grandma. And that's who she is. She's never not been anything more than just my grandma. I had another step grandma who I will never refer to anything more than just, yes, that was my grandfather's wife, because she wasn't a grandma. She was a nice lady. She was nice to us. And, she never did anything that was overtly like, rude or anything like that. Took care of my grandpa, but she never was truly a grandma. So But again, still have love and respect for her, but it's different.
Indeed. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, Cory gets the eyes from his mom, changes his tune pretty quickly.
Yeah. And so Topanga wants to do a performance piece for their project.
Yes.
And this brings me back to just a thought that I had earlier that I forgot to bring up. What projects did Minkus and Topanga do already that they got paired up to do this remake or this redo project with Cory and Shawn?
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's like one of those deals where, like, Feeney was just like, you guys are going to fail this project if I don't reassign you to do it again. So I almost wonder if Topanga and Minkus were already together and their rapport was amazing and perfect. And now he was like, okay, if I can take 2 A+ students, pair them together with these 2, I don't know, C-ish students, maybe these boys can get a B.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And as Shawn will say, you know, Minkus is going to do all the work. He's a god. So. Oh, yeah. So
yes,
Topanga
he's a god
gets
at the wrong table.
Exactly. So Topanga gets up and she has Cory read this poem and she does this interpretive dance, and it's a highly visual moment. So for this audio podcast,
Yes.
you lose a lot. So if you've never seen it, you need to find it on YouTube.
Go watch it.
And she takes out some lipstick and she draws on her face. And as health conscious of a hippie as Topanga is, why does she choose donut as a reference for the sun in her poem? Donut in the sky.
Donuts are beautiful.
I don't argue with you, but Topanga is a very health conscious person at this point in her life. I have to wonder why donut. Anyway.
Maybe she can't have the donut. Thus, it's like the sun is out of her reach.
Maybe it would burn her.
But she
I don't
wants
know.
it.
So, you know, she and Cory start to talk about, again, revisiting just how strange she is. And I love the line where Cory asks, "You're going to be one of those girls who doesn't shave her legs, aren't you?" And she kind of thinks for
feminist.
a beat. Kind of thinks for a beat, and she says, "I haven't decided yet." Mm-hmm. And there's this great interplay between them that I pulled out that I want to use here.
Did you actually try to be weird?
I don't think I'm weird. I think I'm unique. Jedediah and Chloe say that every time you're not true to yourself, the earth weeps.
Do they say that in their native Martian?
The earth is crying for you, Cory.
I'd rather have the earth crying than my friends laughing. People make fun of you, Topanga.
So?
I couldn't take it. I just want to blend in.
Well, you're sure good at it. You look like all the other plain-wrapped kids at school. Except for your red hat.
Hey, I got that on Cat Night. I had to wait an hour online.
Well, if it's important to you, then it's beautiful.
Yeah, so Cory is very good at blending in. He doesn't want to stand out. He doesn't want to be weird. He just wants to fit in. And that'll set up a lot for the second half of the episode. But we really,
very much so.
We really get to see. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, but we really get to see, again, just like last week, the contrast between Alan and George with their worldviews. We really get to see a contrast between Cory and Topanga here. Cory he doesn't want to make waves. He just wants to fit in. Whereas Topanga doesn't care if she fits in. She just wants to be herself. She is exploring. She is eccentric. She just wants to experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, one could argue that Topanga is a feminist. Which that begs
completely
the question. Right. It begs the question, well, what is a feminist? And so I looked it up and it just said, a person who supports feminism. It's like, thanks, Google.
Let's define the word by using the word. Oh, man.
Yes. So then what I found was feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. And I firmly believe that is who Topanga is.
Oh, totally.
She doesn't see, like, just because she's a girl, it doesn't mean that she thinks that Cory is bigger, faster, stronger than her. She just thinks they all exist as equals, and, you know, she just wants everyone to get along.
Mm-hmm. And and her feminism will show up again and again throughout the run-on series. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one could argue that as time progresses, it is her view, and because this never really changes for her. Like, this does stand firm with her for quite some time. Of, you know, she believes she can do anything a guy can do, and it does challenge Cory in what, for lack of better wording, his manly father has been installing in him, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things as young men you have to struggle with and try to figure out, what is it that I believe in? Mm-hmm. You know, not just trying to make people happy.
Yeah.
Speaking of trying to make people happy.
So, Shawn comes over, and
the first Shawn at the house scene, like actually inside the house.
Yes. And he's he's got a fun little message for Topanga.
Use a mirror, babe.
And
not wrong.
not at all. And Shawn and Cory have their own project, and Topanga's very interested. And you know how all those, those dolphins get caught in those tuna nets? Yeah, it's got nothing to do with that. So Shawn's got the stuff for Cory's hair. They go upstairs. They're gonna straighten Cory's hair so he's not a Brillo head anymore.
Yes. Or Chia Pet.
And, apparently after 45 minutes, it's starting to burn Cory's scalp. And there's this fun interchange where Shawn calls his sister Stacy. So we're learning Shawn has a sister Stacy.
She does.
By the way, this is the episode where we finally get Shawn's name, full name.
That's true.
He is referred to as Mr. Hunter by Mr. Feeney and Shawn by Cory. So this is the first time 4 episodes in, we get Topanga and we get Shawn's name. So, Stacy says, I forget exactly what Stacy said, but...
Oh, I have it right in front of me.
Oh, you got it right in front of you?
Yeah. It says, Stacy wants to know how long it's been in for. 45 minutes. Stacy says you should take it out 45 minutes ago. Stacy says you shouldn't have left it in so long. Stacy says, why didn't you idiots read the label? Oh, thanks, Stace.
And Cory walks out, and what a wig for Ben.
Yes. Poor kid.
It is. It's majestic. And before he walks out, there's the scream that reverberates from the house through Philadelphia, from the entire planet. And everyone runs upstairs. And Shawn immediately nopes right out of there. And Eric got the good hair. And
yes. First woo.
Yeah. Woo from the audience.
Yes. It's going to happen a lot.
Oh, yes, it will. Eric talks about a friend at school who did the same thing and bald as a cue ball. Morgan, who earlier, we forgot to mention why Amy was in the kitchen. Morgan had a doll that was cold and had tried to warm up in the toaster oven. So
I made a mistake.
Yeah. Amy had gotten her new one, and I found it interesting that this new dolly has like a business power suit, and
Yes.
Amy is trying to explain to her with this business suit, she's kind of a powerful businesswoman, and she's kind bless you, instilling some feminist values in Morgan here, where she's showing that this doll can do things on her own. She's not just
she went to college, has a good job, and doesn't need Ken to support her.
There you go. And Morgan looks at Cory and says, "Look, Punky Brewster."
Yes. Okay, so this reference never meant anything to me. Like, nothing. I
thought it would be lost on people today too, and it was not lost on me because I was the target audience at this point, so I know who Punky Brewster was. Did you do a deep dive?
Yeah. Essentially, what I learned is that Punky Brewster was a show from the 80s, ran for 4 seasons. The girl who played Punky Brewster, by the way, is a girl who was poor and homeless and found a home in an abandoned apartment. And that's all I really know because I didn't spend too much time on this. But her actress is Soleil Moon Frye.
Soleil Moon Frye.
Yes, that's who. See, I recognized her at first as I was watching clips because she later on played Roxy in Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, when she goes to college. And she also voices the character of Zoe on The Proud Family. And apparently last year they did another show, a Punky Brewster, but Punky being an adult and having her own kids. Mm-hmm. It's like they watched Girl Meets World and thought, we could do that too.
Exactly. There's nothing new under the sun.
No. But again, I will say, one thing, I don't want to get too much into Girl Meets World, but I do appreciate that Girl Meets World was first. Like, it wasn't the first one out the gate, but it wasn't the last to do it, you know?
It was early enough in the trend that it was one of the pioneers.
Yes.
So Alan comes in.
That's a hat, right?
And, Cory tried to straighten his hair with shellac. And, Alan does the same thing that Eric did. This guy at work did the same thing and bald as a cue ball. And, Cory is pleading with his family. He's not going to school tomorrow. He's not going to school. Got a transition. Screen flips.
At school.
He's sitting at school in that red hat he got at Cap Night. And it's time for him and Topanga to go up and give their report. And he's pleading with Mr. Feeney, if you have any ounce of humanity, because Mr. Feeney says no hat in his classroom.
Yep.
But if you have any ounce of humanity, you'll let me keep it on.
Too many years of 6th graders have bled me of my humanity.
Bled me of my humanity.
And it's interesting to me, at this point, I would be left to assume that Mr. Feeney is a 6th grade teacher, that he's not taught other grades up to this point, or at least not many. He's been 6th grade teacher for a while. Just something to keep in mind, And so Cory has to take the hat off, and he's laughed at. He's no longer blending in.
By everyone except for one.
Yep.
That one is Topanga.
Topanga. And so they give their report. Well, we don't get to see them give the report. I'm left to assume that they do the performance piece that Topanga wanted to give.
But I just love, because Cory says, to Topanga, go ahead, laugh. Everyone else has. She's just like, you look different. Why would I laugh?
Mm-hmm. That's powerful words from Topanga.
Mm-hmm. And then they do the perplexed music, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Cory has to contemplate.
And then it's time for lunch, and Cory doesn't really fit in with Shawn at the lunch table, and Larry is sitting with Shawn, and Larry's played by Marty York, and Larry will show up again in class pre-union as Larry and as costume kid number 1 in Boys to Mensa. He has 13 total credits to his name. He is our second actor from The Sandlot. which is probably his biggest role. He was Yaya in The Sandlot. Yeah. So Cory doesn't really fit into this table, so he moves over to the nerd table. And I'm going to run through these nerds we've not met besides Minkus and Topanga. Hillary is the one with the clipboard. She's played by Katie Johnson. It's her first of 3 roles on Boy Meets World. This is the one that will come back later on as one of Cory's paramours. She only has 20 acting credits to her name. Darren is played by Matthew Bartleson, and it's his first credited role. This is Cape Boy. He only has 13 acting credits to his name. He's not actually acted in over 20 years. So
interesting.
Not really sure what he's done. IMDb didn't have much for him for me to find out. And the individual playing the keyboard is played by Sam Horrigan, just credited as student number 1. He will show up in Boy Meets World again in Boys to Mensa as costume kid number 2. Has 37 credits to his name, and his biggest is probably as Spike in Little Giants. He hasn't acted since 2016. These are some really eccentric nerds at this table, and
yes,
there are so many dated references when Cory talks about what they do after school. They watch.
I can go into that a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah, Crossfire, the McNeil Lair Report, anything with Angela Lansbury. Give us your deep dive.
Okay, so Crossfire. Crossfire is a political show where you have people on the right and people on the left debate about a certain subject. So they'd always have a host that's on the left and a host on the right. This went on from 1982 to 2005. In October of 2004, famously, Jon Stewart came to the program, and instead of doing participating in the back and forth, Willy Wonka stuff, he just straight up was like, "Why do we do this? What's the point of this? This is theater." And it kind of shook the show to its core, and thus Ted Turner, the owner of CNN, decided to cancel the show starting in January of 2005. But then later on in 2013, 2014, it came back for a season. I have no idea what happened at that point. All I know is when I looked it up, that it was there. The McNeil and what did I say it was? The McNeil Lair Report. Essentially, that is a part of the PBC News Hour. And so both of them were a part of that, and they both have a certain chunk of that. And so Robert McNeil was there from 1975 to 1995. And then Jim Lear was there from 1976 to 2011. So, at this time, both of those two men were on the show. The big one, Angela Lansbury, she has over 112 acting roles accredited to her. She's part of 40 soundtracks. She voiced a character in Anastasia. She was in Murder, She Wrote. She's been in Nanny McPhee, and probably most famously, she voices Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. Now, I will tell you, I ran out of time and was not able to look into Beavis and Butthead at all. But, essentially, from my understanding in the 90s was Beavis and Butthead were two idiots who had a TV show who made a bunch of inappropriate jokes, and I wasn't allowed to watch it. And that's all I know.
Well, they've got their show back now.
Yes, I heard a rumor about that.
Oh, it's back, yeah. And, of course, we got the woo from the audience when Cory mentions Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. Well, that was really surprising to me, I guess. Because I know it was a big deal, but maybe I didn't realize how big of a deal it was. Beavis
and Butthead were huge. The fact, and you knew they were huge because they got a full-length film, Beavis and Butthead Do America. They were I believe, among the first real scripted programs for MTV. I could be wrong. They might be in the middle, but as I remember, they were among the first, and they were definitely among the most popular.
Yep. Oh, there's no way this isn't going to come back up again. So if Bemis about to come back up, I'll do a little deep dive on it again. I promise.
Yeah. So, Hillary's trying to get a petition signed to keep the librarian because she's being forced out of her job and she can't get any signatures. And Cory has nothing better to do now, so he's trying to help out. He's trying to find out why they're not succeeding, and he's trying to make an effort here because clearly they're not connecting with their target audience, which is the larger part of the school, because nerds clearly make up a small portion of the population. And Topanga's kind of confused. Why are you helping now?
Because life is strange, and now so am I.
And so once again, we're back at home. Cory's hair is starting to fluff up a little bit, or fluff out. It's not as duck head as it was. It's not as shellacked as it was. And he's trying to recurl it. And Eric comes in, picks up some old technology, the old Polaroid, and snaps a picture. I own you now. Just a fun moment. It's not what it looks like.
Doesn't matter.
And so we move on back to school. And I just kind of flew through my notes at this point.
You're fine.
The plan is now it's Friday. The small band of nerds are going to chain themselves to the lockers, blocking the only way out of the school, because that's the only way they're going to get the rest of the school to sign the petition. Apparently, if they get enough signatures on the petition, it's going to change the school board's mind to not force this librarian out. And
90s.
Yeah. I can't think of a petition now that would really have that sort of effect on a school board decision.
Right. I mean, you could argue that a petition back in the 90s is similar to a Twitter movement now. The only reason I say that is because we got the Snyder Cut, and it's only because a giant portion of fans kept tweeting about it and annoyed Warner Brothers to go, fine.
Yeah. And it's we've got change.org now, and supposedly if it hits a certain threshold, those petitions go before the White House. Supposedly. I don't remember any of them that really had any impact.
Right.
I could be wrong. Listeners, let me know if I'm wrong. I don't remember hearing of any.
Right.
But there are petitions, there are classifications of petitions. If, say, there's a recall election, you have to have a petitions with so many signatures by a certain date to have a recall election take place. Just in the last year, I have seen them happen. But here we have a librarian who, and based on some of the things that Cory brings up to these students, this librarian needs to be retired.
Yes.
Help me remember some of the things. I believe Larry, he told her he was training for the decathlon, and to get out of a study hall, she bought him a discus.
Yeah, I was training for the Olympic decathlon, and she believed me. Bought me a discus.
But yeah, this librarian is someone that is not quite with it, and probably should be put in forced retirement.
Right. She may be there whenever the school is built, so.
Might have been. But anyway, the ploy works, and they all go sign, all these students go sign the petition. And the nerds celebrate. All of them except for Cory and Topanga unchain themselves.
I say, okay, the nerds bail very fast.
Yes, they do. I was just going to comment. Did they have keys?
Maybe.
I didn't pay close enough attention. They unchain themselves. They're out of there.
Yeah. Like
They're
I get
off
like
to watch their Angela Lansbury.
Well, I could understand, like, hey, we should go make sure they actually sign the petition. But it looks like, legit, like, they all just, like, bail immediately because it's almost like they knew, hey, Cory did a thing. Topanga's always had a crush on him. Let's get out of their way.
Yeah, it seems very planned. And apparently, since this plan worked, it gets Topanga a little bit friendly here.
I never knew I had it in me.
Sometimes the reluctant warrior is the bravest warrior.
You're not gonna, like, kiss me now, are you?
Would it be your first kiss?
Hey, don't come near me.
Because it would be interesting if all your life you remembered that your first kiss happened when you thought you looked weird. Wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't be interesting. Get away.
Because then you'd know. It's not what you look like on the outside that matters. It's what kind of person you are.
You shouldn't kiss somebody you're not married to.
Yeah, I would have to feel I really knew the person. And that I liked him.
Good.
Good. It was my first one, too.
Now, for audio, you missed a little bit there, but you can tell by all the woo in the audience. And if you've not seen it before, she pushed him against the locker and kissed him.
Yeah. Can I just say, just as a aside for a moment, Cory's the one that brings up a kiss. I don't know if he's just looking at Topanga and can tell something's different, something's weird happening.
Or just
but
Cory
he's the
put
one
the
who
idea-
immediately goes, "Are you gonna kiss me now?"
Does he put the idea in her head?
Right, and it's like, it's almost like he's saying to her, like, if you would, like, I'd be okay with it, but I'm not going to initiate it. Like, it's honestly, like, as an adult, as I'm listening to this, it's like, it feels like he's trying to give her that permission. He just doesn't understand that's what he's doing.
Well, think about this. Cory is chained up, and Topanga is forcing a kiss on him.
Yes, how dare she?
That wouldn't go over well today.
No, but, you know, it does make it clear that she really knows the person, and she likes him.
Yes, and
Right.
she is very, very impressed with what he did when he looks weird, where he is not fitting in. She sees that he has done something good when he was way outside of his comfort zone, way outside of his element, and that he did it not so he would fit in, not so that he could be normal, but because he felt it was the right thing to do.
Right. Well, and, you know, it does fit into a narrative that they'll later on play out of Cory and Topanga's love story of, you know, they've always liked each other, they've always been around each other, except for a time period when Cory decided that she was icky.
Yep.
And you can almost see, like, he's in that zone. So the only reason why you could say, like, well, why didn't we see her in the first couple episodes? Well, Cory decided not to pay attention to the nerd table. Mm-hmm. And didn't see Topanga until he had no choice but to see her.
Cory's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, very much so.
Yep. And so then we get the tag of the episode. Cory speaks up to Marla and tells her that it's not nice to call him a Brillo head. And She says, we don't even think about you. I was talking about my sister's friend. Snap, snap. So how long after that kiss with Topanga is this? Because Cory had a lot of hair in that scene. He looked like Don King. And here it is, back to normal. Yes, I know real world, that was a wig, and this is Ben's normal hair. But for his hair to look like this, it would have had to have been cut and grown back out. Right. Just a fun observation.
The way they make it seem is if it's right before the weekend, so maybe he took like 30 showers in the weekend. His mom maybe got the right product to get it out of his hair. You know, Cory wasn't patient enough.
She buzzed it and put some Jerry curl in it.
Maybe, sure.
Maybe. And we find out Shawn has a backyard at his house, so we don't know that he lives in the trailer park yet. Because Shawn invites Cory and Larry over for some touch football in his backyard.
Yes, we are going to have to really get a good theory on Shawn's situation this school year and how we go to him being in the trailer park.
That's right. So
we don't have time for that today.
We don't have time for that today. So we need to talk about Mr. Feeney.
Feeney's a butt.
No, he's not, Alan. He taught us something today. Tyler, what did you learn today? What's your Feeney's lesson today?
Well, I think one of the things that everyone has to learn is if someone is going to like you, they're going to like you for you and not for anything you put out. My wife and I have talked very openly about when we were first start dating and whatnot. She's starting to forget those things, but I remember almost everything about when we first started dating. And, when we first started dating, she made it very clear to me of like, I knew you were once an athlete, all these things. But the reason I had my eye on you is because just you had a good personality and you were funny and you were enjoyable to be around. And you had a passion for stuff. At no point was I trying to be someone else. She's the first woman that I really was just, this is who I am. It's either you take me as I am or you don't. And I didn't try to be someone else. And, I think we were able to have a much better relationship much quicker than any previous relationship because of that. Mm-hmm. So, Topanga helped me learn that today. Topanga.
Well, my Feeney lesson is be yourself and don't let the outside appearance or the world around you dictate who you are.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's grade this puppy.
You are worth every inch of that C+ I gave you in math.
What would you grade Cory's alternative friends?
Sorry, do we want to discuss Stacy real quick?
Oh, yes, Stacy. Well, let's real world. Back in 2013, Ryder Strong revealed that Shawn's sister Stacy, who's never mentioned after this episode, another young actor was supposed to be in the mix as Cory and Shawn's friend, who would have had an older sister named Stacy, who was either fired or just quit right before filming, and so Ryder was given all of those lines. So, real world reason, it was another actor's lines that were just given to Ryder. But let's talk about the Boy Meets World universe. Why does Shawn have a sister that we never hear about again? Tyler, what's the theory that we've come up with?
Well, Brett, the best theory that I could possibly come up with, and I think you may agree with this. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
So Stacy is actually Verna, who's Shawn's mother, is her daughter. So it's not Shawn's. She would not be Shawn's full-blooded sibling. She'd be a half sibling. So Chet, his dad, not his daughter. And because of this, she's living with, the two of them, the three of them, living at her mom's house with stepdad, with Shawn, and he doesn't understand this dynamic. All he knows is that he has an older sister, Stacy. But then my theory goes into that Verna was actually pregnant as a teenager, which is why she has her, and she's older than Shawn by several years, enough that she may be actually out of school at this point, but it's enough of an age gap where it's it's a big deal, and enough that let's say that Stacy also now becomes a teen mom. And Chet being the fact that, hey, I don't want a baby here because this isn't my kid to start with. The girl, Stacy, decides to move in with the baby daddy's family. And thus, Verna kind of holds that against Chet because he kind of broke up their family a little bit, or her family. And thus, we never see Stacy again because she also kind of just leaves Shawn's life, especially as she learns more about family dynamics. And also, this also could have been something that occurred after Chet had lost his job later on. We'll find out, too.
I can buy that.
Yeah. So the gist of it is that, Chet didn't want to deal with this girl, and thus a wedge was brought between he and his precious wife, Verna. And things get more complicated because of decisions, choices, and actions, and unwillingness to, be kind.
Yep. And she's clearly older than Shawn, so
yes.
Yeah, I can buy that. I buy that theory. We'll bank that.
Well, thank you.
All right, so let's grade this. What do you give as a grade to Cory's Alternative Friends?
Well, this is going to be controversial.
Uh-oh.
I know how highly regarded this episode is. I know how much people love it, and I know how much I used to love it. However, if I'm honest with myself right now as I watched it, I gotta give it a C+. And the big reason is I think this episode, I think over time has become more popular because of how amazing Topanga is. Also, this is the first episode where Shawn really becomes his best friend. So there's a really important stuff going on, but I feel like the legacy of this episode is much higher than the actual quality of this actual episode. Mm-hmm. It's still a great episode. I loved it. I would watch it again in a heartbeat, but we've watched better episodes, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, and I went back and forth, but I landed on a C.
Ooh.
And it's a middle of the road episode. It's it has its strong moments, but overall, it's a fairly middle of the road story.
Wow.
And aside from the Topanga element, it's not a strong outing, and it's missing a real Feeney or Alan or Amy spark.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
it truly is dominated by the kids, what's going on with them.
Yeah, and it's not that they're bad actors or that they're not doing anything well with what they're given. It's just it's missing that spark. It's all about the kids, and they're not learning. Not that they're not learning and they're not growing, but it's missing someone pouring into them.
Right.
They're kind of doing everything on their own, and so it's just kind of, it doesn't rise above like the other episodes have so far. So that's a C for me.
I agree. Right. But I mean, a lot of this could just be the fact that we are two grown men who are dads watching this show.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't resonate us with like it would have when we were younger.
Yep. And like we said, could be rose-colored glasses too. Everyone likes to look back at things. But you know what? That's my grade, and I don't need to defend anymore. If you disagree with me, feel free to write in. We'll take all kinds of mail. And you can write into us at dadsmeetworld@gmail.com. Or
yes, we can.
You can reach us on Twitter and Facebook. Facebook at facebook.com/dadsmeetworld, or Twitter at, look in the show notes because I'm not sure what it is yet.
Nope.
Tyler, where can we reach you online? It's there, but I can't remember because it's not set up as of this recording.
Correct. You can find me on Twitter at Tyler Volk, but also with the Facebook page, we can always respond there as well. So.
Exactly. And you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram under Dr. Headley Art. I put up my art there, and I'll interact with you there if you find me there. So that's it for this week. I do owe you a dad joke before we go, though, Tyler.
Yes, you do.
All right. So, did you know the oldest computer can be traced back to Adam and Eve?
Really?
Yeah, you brought up the Bible earlier. I thought I'd go with this one. It was an apple with limited memory, just one bite, and then everything crashed.
Very nice.
And with that, we bid you adieu, dear listeners. We'll see you next week. We'll see you, good looking.
After you, good looking.
All right. You can find Dads Meet World on Facebook, Twitter, and probably a few other places just by searching for Dads Meet World. Dads Meet World is a production of Headfirst Studios. Headfirst Studios, tell your story.